Hey, it's Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And no game, genuinely, like the title of this video says, no game is worth $1,100. And this is Too Many Bones Unbreakable, the newest standalone game in the Too Many Bones universe, a game that hit $1.3 million in less than 24 hours, 4,789 backers. This thing is absolutely killing it on GameFound. This is their highest funded campaign to date, crossing their highest funded previous campaign, which is Slice and Dice, which hit $1,010,000 or something. It crossed the whole campaign. This smashed that in hours, literally hours. And by the way, we have this banner up here for Lords of Ragnarok, which is going to be launching in 2 days, or a day basically, on GameFound, which 31,000 backers, which begs the question that is completely unrelated to this video: which one of these two games is going to fund higher? Because on the one hand, we have Lords of Ragnarok, which has 31,000 people following this page, compared to the roughly 21,000 that were following Too Many Bones. On the other hand, I highly doubt that Lords of Ragnarok has an $1,100 pledge, which brings us right back to the title of this video. No game is worth $1,100. The people backing that $1,100 pledge, we're going to talk about you. That said, if you've been paying attention to my channel, then you already know that just a few days ago I put out a video saying that if I could only keep one game, Too Many Bones may well be in the running for that one game. If I could only have one game in my collection. And to be clear, that does not necessarily mean it's my favorite game, but the degree of variety it has, a degree of journey and adventure. If I had to look across my games, my favorite little, well, my darlings, my collection of games, if I had to pick only one of them, Too Many Bones would absolutely be in the running. That doesn't mean it's worth $1,100. Although, granted, to be completely fair, if it was the only game I could have, then yes, I'm getting the $1,100 absolutely, because it's my only game. But that's a little bit of a tangent here. So let's dive into this one. This is the GameFound campaign. If at any point in this video I mention the words Kickstarter, it's a slip of the tongue. I'm still getting that out of my system, or at least learning to differentiate. But at $1.3 million, day one, 16 days left, this thing is well going to cross $2 million, possibly cross $3 million, although that might be a bit of a push. That early day rush is definitely going to be there. I would say you're looking at around $2.5 million by the time this thing is done, almost certainly over 2, but we'll see exactly how it plays out. And out of all that, we have 4,791 backers. If you're thinking that if you're thinking 1.3 million divided by 4,700 backers is a larger amount than you might think, well, we're coming in at roughly $285 is the average amount spent per backer. Okay, that's counting all the dollar pledges. Whenever you see a $100 pledge campaign, usually the average pledge level is lower than that, because there are always those $5 or $1 lurkers, people jumping in for a little bit and not a lot. The fact that we're averaging $285 for this is absolutely insane, which brings us to the rewards tier. And yes, we will talk about Too Many Bones itself as well. But the rewards tier here, we have 3,397 people who are backing the Unbreakable Hero Pledge. This is the primary main content for Too Many Bones, although with a bit of a be careful here, because you are going to be backing some 40 Waves and Dolor content, which is really meant more focus as being expansion content for Undertow. So this is a great entry point pledge, but if you don't have Undertow, you are kind of mixing and matching to a degree. Then there's the Too Many Bones Unbreakable Pledge, which is the new standalone game, giving you more Too Many Bones, but with a bit more mechanics involved. The main focus is going to be a battle mat that has more of a reason to move around with the introduction of lava. With lava that's going to burn yourself and baddies, or some baddies, not all baddies. And so their goal was to say, hey, some people interact with Too Many Bones in different ways. There's going to be some more movement, some less movement. If you're a ranged gearloc, there's barely any movement needed. If you're a melee gearloc, there's a little bit of movement, but not a lot. They wanted to open up the battle mat even more, to give you even more of a reason to move around those 16 squares, and that's why they introduced Too Many Bones Unbreakable, at least one of the reasons for it. And then they have Too Many Bones, the base game, where we have 462 people jumping in for just that. And honestly, I haven't played Unbreakable, so take this with a grain of salt, but my opinion is, if you're looking for a single campaign, if you're looking for my recommendation for a single entry point, it's still going to be the base game of Too Many Bones. What I'd recommend as a solid entry point. Gives you a lot of content, more than enough, and we'll talk about exactly what you do and don't need. And then we have the Strategist Pledge, which sold out in 2 seconds, because that's what this sells out. This is a typical chip theory game staple, where they put a Strategist Pledge on the page, where you get access to a base pledge for every future game they ever put out. And then that does mean that you are incentivized to go get the $1,100 pledges, because you want all of the stuff and not just the base. Then we have $675 for Just Enough Bones. 104 people jumping in on this. This is going to be all the gameplay content for Too Many Bones, released to date. All the gameplay content, none of the extras, no premium health chips, no gigantic box. It's all the gameplay content focused foremost on just playing the game. And then finally we have the Ultimate Completionist. $1,100. $1,100 and 141 people have jumped in on this. To be very clear, that means 141 people who haven't previously gotten any Too Many Bones content to date. I completely understand and get the love for Too Many Bones. Any person who has played it, who has fallen in love with the system, and the people who jump straight into all the new stuff. That most popular pledge, the Unbreakable Hero, $220 for all the new stuff. That makes complete sense to me. But the Ultimate Completionist, that's 141 people who said, yeah, it seems like it's worth $1,100. And I don't know who they are. I don't know if they are people who played the game at a friend's house, who had it at one point. Maybe they have the base game and they did the math and they figured out getting the Ultimate Completionist is the best way to go. Once you just have the base game, if you want to go from base game to everything, this may give you the biggest discount and still be worth doing. It may well. It's giving you the trove chest, it's giving you, well, it's giving you everything. I mean, you can click through these pledges over here on GameFound, and you'll see there's absolutely everything. And $1,100 is way more than you need to spend. It's absolutely way more than you ever need to spend. And no, I don't think Too Many Bones is worth that much money. And yes, I do think Too Many Bones is one of the best games I have in my collection, and possibly one of the only games I would have. Now, I'm not saying not to spend it, but I'm saying it probably isn't worth it, especially for someone like myself who does have all the gameplay content and hasn't felt the need to dive into it, which is why this is a good time. We still haven't talked about the actual game yet, but this is a good time to talk about the fact that on Facebook post after Facebook post, on forum after forum, I am seeing people who are seeing the Too Many Bones. They're seeing that $1,100 price tag. They are setting it in their mind as that's the all-in pledge. And then they're saying, well, that's too much money. And so I'm just going to walk away entirely. And I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you do that. Too Many Bones is an amazing experience. And I am very, very sympathetic to every single person who ever looks at an all-in price and says, well, if I'm not getting that, I'm getting nothing. I have the same mentality. 100% I do. In this case, the sheer gap of what the all-in is, and the sheer amount of non-gameplay content you're getting, you'll be getting a flip book. You'll be getting stories and I mean, if we click through this, you're getting absolutely everything that you do not need. There's a whole bunch of stuff I'd recommend, but there's gameplay content you won't get to for a very long time. There's non-gameplay content that isn't even going to help you. This is not an all-in pledge of all the stuff you'll want to play. This is above and beyond what you'll ever need. And if you're looking at Too Many Bones as, hey, I have to get everything or I should get nothing, do me a favor and trust me on this. The base game is solid. Jump in for Unbreakable alone. It seems to be a good introductory point to this series. Jump in for the base game of Too Many Bones alone. Maybe get the Unbreakable Hero pledge. And granted, you're getting some 40 Waves and Dolor content over there. But that's fine. You can go ahead and pick up Too Many Bones Undertow. You can mix and match, get a solid degree of content. You can get a lot of Too Many Bones content for well under that $1,100. You can get a ton of content that you will not go through for years and years for under $300 over here. There's a lot of options, a lot of mixing and matching, and you should not view it as all or nothing. And with that, let's finally actually start talking about Too Many Bones. Now again, I have a review that just went up this past week, not of Unbreakable, to be very clear. I don't have my hands on the prototype or anything like that. I don't think there were any prototypes sent around, but I love Too Many Bones. It's been a staple of my collection ever since I first played it. I adore the game, and I figured now was a good time to put up a review. And if you want to spend half an hour listening to me basically gush about how much I love the game and why and what it is, then that video is great. If you don't want to listen for that long, then the short version is Too Many Bones is an RPG adventure game in which the focus of the game is building out your characters, developing your characters, finding ways to level up and where to put your skill points, your training points as you go through this adventure. You'll be going through any number of, generally in the range of 6 to 15 adventure days, encounter days, as you go through different scenarios and you encounter different choices and options. Do you fight them or do you fight them? Do you add this card to your deck or do you perhaps go for a few training points? Giving you tons of options as to how you progress through the story on the way to ultimately defeat the evil tyrant of your adventure. And the fun of the game, the part that makes Too Many Bones so amazing, is the characters. Each individual character packs that will cost you, by the way, roughly $30 to add a character pack. And if you're thinking $30 for a single character sounds high, then it depends who you're comparing it to. If you're comparing it to any typical command Kickstarter where they're like, here's 2 extra characters for your game for $20, and even then people are complaining, then yes, it sounds high. But if you get the nuance you get in every character genuinely is its own little game. Every character comes with its full sheet set of rules, and they are totally asymmetric in the way they feel and the way they play. They utilize the same basic core mechanics, but they're all their own little puzzle as to what they do it and how they do it. And the base game of Too Many Bones comes with 4 characters. Undertow comes with 2 characters. There's multiple character packs you can buy. Unbreakable is going to come with 2 characters. There's going to be 3 optional character packs. Each of these characters is an entirely new game in terms of how you'll encounter and engage within the world of Too Many Bones. That's the high-level overview. If you want more information, more content about how the game plays, the rolling of the dice, the battles, the battle cues, all that stuff, you can watch my review, or any of a dozen other reviews. Shut Up and Sit Down has a review. There's tons of content around this game because it has been people's favorite game for a very long time. As far as this campaign, like I said already, this is Unbreakable. Unbreakable is adding 2 new characters. We're going to have Gale over here, and then if we scroll a little bit down the page, we have Figment over here. Figment, who seems to be engaging with some form of time travel as they transported into our moment of time because that's when they're needed most, and then meanwhile they'll be dancing around the battle mat in some way manipulating the flow of time. And then we have the various tyrants you'll be facing off with. You have a whole bunch of tyrants in the base game. I believe there are 5 tyrants. I have to double check. I think 1 was unlocked. We have like Lock and Rock in the stretch goals. Here's Gale over here. Gale's a valiant freedom fighter. She's grievously wounded. A set of cybernetic augmentations that give her a bunch of wind-based abilities if she can if she can take control of them. And then we have Figment, who's not really a figment of our imagination, but much more of a time traveler, so to speak. And then we have Nexus, we have Gavin Cog, we have Domina, we have Cinder, and then we have Rock and Roll, who I love that name. If you watch The Boys on television, The Boys from Amazon, then Rock and Roll remind me of those 2 clones as, I'm the original, no, I'm the original, which makes sense if you've watched that show, and just makes me sound a little off if you haven't watched that show. But we have Rock and Roll, who seem to be very on top of their intellectual game as they figure out how to take you down. And each of these tyrants represents a new puzzle, a way to engage with the Too Many Bones, a way to engage with whatever it's throwing at you as you figure out which characters you're facing off with them and doing what you need to do to, well, win. As far as the pledge levels, we talked about it already. We talked about the basic pledge levels and what's included. The Unbreakable hero is the one that's going to have most of the new stuff. Not all the new stuff. There's a lot of non-gameplay stuff, but it's going to have most of the new stuff. It's going to have the Unbreakable campaign, which we just talked about the contents over there. It's going to have Rage of Tyranny, which is a play on words of Age of Tyranny, which was their prior expansion. Rage of Tyranny, which is developing the actual tyrants, giving them more ways to face off against the tyrants. And I'm realizing as I click around that this won't really help me here. We have 40 Waves into Lore, which is focusing on giving you, well, more content for Undertow. 40 Waves into Lore being a play of words on 40 Days into Lore. And yes, they are already working on 40 Caves into Lore. Basically, 40 Days into Lore is more encounters for the original Too Many Bones. 40 Waves into Lore is more encounters for Undertows. And slowly, through the use of stretch goals, they are unlocking 40 Caves into Lore, which they're only at 5 so far, so hold your horses. But that will be more content, more encounters for Unbreakable, and will be sold as an extra add-on later. We'll talk about value soon enough. And then, next, in terms of what you get over here, you get the 3 new heroes. We get Carcass, Polaris, and Static. Now, Carcass, let me see if I can find the new heroes. Where are the new heroes over here? We have the new gearlocs. Nope, they're not down there. We can go to the add-ons, I guess. Let's go ahead to the add-ons over here, where we can click through the various Carcass, Polaris, and Static. Carcass is, at first glance, Carcass seems like a cannibal, eating the flesh of those that he attacks, although then again, thinking about it practically, if a lion attacks you and then you eat its flesh after, are you a cannibal or are you just very adaptive to what's going on? But that's basically what Carcass is. They're a survivalist who's utilizing the flesh of the enemies that you're dealing with to, well, survive. So we'll see how that goes, although I'm not really that enamored, so it's off-put, but hey, if it works, right? We have Polaris, otherwise known as Professor Trelawney, who's basically floating her little war orbs around the battle mat in order to use her ability to move through baddies and a recovery phase, giving you more options and a different way to play out Too Many Bones, which is basically what every Gearloc does. And finally, we have Static, who's much more of a hand-to-hand fighter, a bit of a monk, so to speak. Every turn he doesn't attack, he's actually building up and saving his dexterity, so it has a little bit of a push and pull as you play with when you're resting, when you're meditating, whatever it is, versus when you are striking against your opponent. So this is going to be the martial artist of the Too Many Bones world, although he does look a little He looks like he's been spending a little too much time hanging out with Carcass, but that's neither here nor there. But those are the 3 new gearlocs, and those are some of the optional buys. Those are all included in the primary Unbreakable Hero Pledge. Past that, we have the Chip Theory Crossover Loot Promo Pack. This is something that's free if you signed up for the campaign to be notified already. You have to check to see if it's in your pledge, but this is $5 for a few cards, I believe 3 cards, that are just crossover content for your Too Many Bones, bringing in some like hints or, to like Burn Cycle into the Too Many Bones game that you have on the table. Just more loot cards or whatnot. We have the Too Many Bones Unbreakable Adventure double-sided map. This is completely unnecessary. You do not need this at all. It looks pretty on the table. It's a nice way to track your day counter instead of tracking on the card. If you have the original Too Many Bones content, you'll have your own little one. It looks nice. It's unnecessary. It is... I'm not saying I don't want it. I'm saying that when you're looking at that $1,100 pledge and you're trying to figure out what's in it, this kind of stuff is in it. Stuff that you want, but stuff that you do not need. Then we have Too Many Bones, the Cogbook, which is one of their ridiculous over-the-top attempts at, one of their ridiculous over-the-top ventures into making something that is ridiculously cool, but also unnecessary, but giving you more of the Too Many Bones story as it finishes off. And we have the large playmat, which is $60. Again, this is all the stuff going into your unnecessarily $1,100 pledge. The large playmat, giving you a very large area over here that is more than you need. This is much more than you need. This will take up table space that you don't want to dedicate to this game. And so, again, you can get it, but you don't need it. And then we have the Too Many Bones Trove Chest. This is $150, and I do think that this is solid, and, I mean, it's solid. It's very heavy to lift up. But I think that the Trove Chest is nice. I think it's excellent. I think it's also $150 for what effectively becomes a Too Many Bones paperweight. It is very large. I just spent some time moving around my house this past week, and it is not something that's fun to move around. This is something that is very nice to have on your shelf and pull stuff out, but this turns Too Many Bones from being potentially travelable content into well-organized content for sure, but well-organized content that wants to stay in one place. I think it's very cool. I think it's very useful. I do recommend it, but $150 for something that has pros and cons is a balance you definitely want to think about before you put that money towards it. And this is for those of you who have backed Too Many Bones the Trove Chest already, who already own the Trove Chest, the Tyrant and Gearloc Deluxe storage over here, which they've already lowered the price a bit based on some pushback and trying to accommodate, but these are going to be the extra trays you need to bring your original Trove Chest up to where this one is as far as all the content that will store and accommodate the new stuff that you're getting. Because your original Trove Chest came with some extras, but not enough extras for all the new Unbreakable content, so you'll need to spend that extra $25. And before you complain, which I know you already are, or some of you are, remember that your Trove Chest costs $75, not $150. So your $75 plus your $25 still brings you to $100, still making it a much better deal than those who are coming down the road. Then we have the collapsible dice tower, which does look cool, but it's just a dice tower. Then we have the dice tray, which is again just a dice tray. And then finally we have Too Many Bones, the Automaton of Shale, which is a flip book. Like, this is really a flip book with a tyrant in there and some content, but it's an expensive venture, $65 for some more stuff. You can check out the Too Many Bones live stream where you'll get a brief look at what this is. It is another experiment that the Chip Theory Games is doing, providing more and more world-building stuff around their game. And then we have stretch goals, which we will not go through every single thing here. I may or may not do an update video around this campaign before it's towards the end of the 16 days. But overall, we just have more cars, more content, more gearlocs, more enemies, more encounters, more stuff. All these things over here, some upgrades, a lot of stretch goals so far in terms of everything over there. And then we have the why back now. The should you back it, should you not? And honestly, they cover it themselves just fine. Why pledge now? This is 100% accurate, everything they say here. Too Many Bones, in general, is a price-controlled product, meaning this does not go down to stores. You buy this on the website or on Kickstarter campaigns or on the secondhand market. And that means generally the prices they offer on the Kickstarter, GameFound, you see there I did it. The prices they offer on GameFound generally are the best prices you can get at all, period, bar none. Secondly, they often do raise their MSRPs after the fact to account for changes, and those MSRPs you already have your price locked in. The Trove Chest is going to be a great example of this, which was something that was offered to people at $75 and is now $150. They upgraded the Trove Chest and said, hey, we already told you the price, so you get it for the price you paid, but everyone else now has to pay a premium to get it. So they do raise the MSRPs on their products, and those slowly go up, but your price is locked in. And then finally, and they cover this as well, Their games are frequently between print runs, and Kickstarter is the best opportunity to lock it in. As far as should you back it, should you not, the general idea of this game is Chip Theory games in general have their products available for a good price. Not an amazing price generally, although you have to factor in those potential raises in MSRPs, but generally a good price that will be the cheapest opportunity for you to get it, and that generally does mean that you can sell this and get your money back. You will not be making a ton of money on it, with exceptions like the Trove Chest where the MSRP basically doubles, but most of the time you'll be able to sell what you got just fine. So I'm not worried about this from the stance of should you back it, should you not. You're fine on most nearly everything you get here. But again, you don't need to spend $1,100 on this game. If you want to, you do you. I love this game so much that there's a part of me that wants to back the $1,100 pledge, even though I have all this content. I'm not going to be very clear. I am a little bit insane, but I'm not that insane. But if you're looking at this campaign, if you're trying to decide if this is a game for you, if you need this stuff, you absolutely do not need all of the stuff over here. And besides, that $1,100 will be very helpful when you need to save it to go through their pledge manager, where they show you everything else you can get, from Too Many Bones to Burn Cycle to Hoplomachus Victorum to Cloudspire. They're going to have all their content, including promos, by the way, or at least promos that they have available. All that will be available in the pledge manager as well, and so it's a lot of stuff to spend your money on. I keep hearing from people I need to play Cloudspire. I have Cloudspire. I haven't tabled it yet. I have read the rulebook twice. Chip Theory Games is a solid company that makes really solid games. I'm looking forward to Hoplomachus Victorum. I'm looking forward to finally tabling Cloudspire. And I'm looking forward to the more content for Too Many Bones, even though I have plenty of gearlocs that I still haven't experimented with, that I still haven't tried, and that I need to get to the table. This is one of the best games I own, but you don't need to spend $1,100 to get it. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.